Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking something that usually feels like a tedious bureaucratic chore and reframing it into exactly what it really is, your literal ticket to the world. We're looking at Form DS-11. Whether you're a first-time applicant, applying for a child, or replacing a lost passport, this piece of paper is the key that unlocks your next great international adventure. But, the U.S. Department of State has some very strict rules, and one simple mistake can delay your travel plans for weeks. So we're going to break down all the official guidance and make this process completely foolproof.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We've taken those 24 kind of intimidating official steps and squashed them down into a super simple 4-phase prep pipeline. Starting your form, filling out your personal details, gathering your evidence, and finally, the appointment and the golden rule.
All right, phase 1, starting your DS-11 form.
So the State Department actually highly recommends generating your document using their online form filler. It just reduces mistakes. But, well, here's the catch. Once you're done, you gotta print it out. And this brings us to our first massive pitfall. You absolutely have to use standard 8.5 by 11 inch of paper, keep it in a portrait orientation, and I cannot stress this enough, it must be single-sided. Seriously, do not print this thing double-sided. I know, it seems like a tiny detail, like you're just trying to save a tree, right? But double-sided printing is a super common trap that will absolutely delay your application. Just don't do it.
Now, right at the top in step 2, you've got a really crucial choice to make. Passport book or passport card. Basically, if you're flying internationally, you need the book, no question. The card, it's smaller, fits right in your wallet, but it's way more limited. You can really only use it for land and sea border crossings. Think Canada, Mexico, or the Caribbean. Now, fun fact, if you're a super frequent flyer, you can check a box to get a large passport book with extra visa pages. Or, honestly, if you just want maximum flexibility, you can go ahead and get both the book and the card.
Moving right along to phase 2, filling out personal details.
So steps 3 through 15, they're mostly just your standard data entry. Place of birth, contact info, parent information, emergency contacts, all that good stuff. But listen up, because there is a massive red flag to watch out for here, and it's your date of birth. The date of birth you type into this application has to perfectly 100% match the citizenship evidence you'll be submitting later. If you make even a tiny typo in the month or day, it triggers a mismatch, and that means the State Department hits pause on your whole application to ask more questions. Nobody wants that. And that exact same rule applies to your name too. You have to use your legal name exactly as it appears on your supporting documents. So if your birth certificate says Michael David Johnson, you enter Michael David Johnson. No nicknames, no abbreviations, no skipping the middle name. You want to match those supporting documents absolutely to the letter.
Okay, next up, you'll be asked for a social security number and a USCIS A number. For the social security number, you've got to enter your real 9-digit number. If you've actually never been issued one, you have to follow the specific instructions on the form for that exact situation. Do not just make up a random fake number to fill in the box. That's a huge no-no. And as for the A number, the current DS-11 instructions explicitly demand that if you don't have one, you just leave that field completely blank. Just skip it.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is just how strict the Department of State is about your passport history. Let's say you previously had a U.S. passport, but it was lost or stolen. You have to provide those details. If you just leave that section incomplete, boom, automatic pause on your application. You might even end up having to fill out a whole separate form called a DS-64 just to clear up the confusion. So moral of the story? Be thorough.
All right, we are officially halfway there. Phase 3, gathering your evidence.
This is kind of the physical treasure hunt phase of the explainer. You have to literally prove you're a U.S. citizen, which means tracking down a primary original document. Usually that's going to be a U.S. birth certificate, maybe a previous full validity passport, a consular report of birth abroad, or a certificate of naturalization. And you need the actual original document. Plus, you also have to bring a single-sided photocopy of that exact document, again on standard 8.5 by 11 inch paper. Oh, and don't forget a valid physical photo ID, like a driver's license, along with a photocopy of both the front and the back of that ID.
Now, I really want to pause here and heavily emphasize this rule, especially for all of us modern travelers. I know we're so used to just pulling up documents or tickets on our smartphones, right? But the State Department, they do not care about your digital wallet. Physical documents only. I'm talking actual, tangible paper. Digital or mobile versions of your citizenship documents or your ID are absolutely not accepted as substitutes. Literally, if you show up waving your birth certificate around on an iPad, you are going to be turned away. And finally, to wrap up this phase, you need a photo.
Just one. One single physical passport photo that perfectly meets all those official size and lighting requirements. But here's the trick, and it's a big one. Do not staple or attach it to the form yourself. Seriously, just leave the stapler in your desk drawer. Bring the photo with you loose. The acceptance agent has to officially review it and staple it to the form themselves.
Which brings us to the home stretch. Phase 4, the appointment and the golden rule.
Okay, listen closely. If you remember absolutely nothing else from this explainer, please remember step 19. Do not sign the form before your appointment. I know you've done all this hard work, you've printed everything flawlessly, and it is so tempting to just sign your name at the bottom and be completely done with it. Don't do it. Bring the completed form completely, 100% unsigned. If you sign it early, it's basically a trap. They will literally make you fill out all the paperwork and do the signature all over again.
So the crucial point here is why? Why wait to sign it? Well, it's because applying for a passport is a formal legal declaration. The passport acceptance agent at the facility has to formally administer a required oath to you, and then they have to physically watch you sign the document while under that oath. No cutting corners.
You also need to be prepared for the fees, which, let's be honest, can be a bit confusing to decipher. So for a first-time adult passport book, it's $130 for the application, plus a $35 facility fee. That makes it $165 total. But pay close attention here. These are two completely separate fees. You can't just write one big check for $165. You actually have to pay the Department of State directly for the application, and then you pay the acceptance facility separately for processing you.
And speaking of those facilities, where do you actually go to do all this? Well, good news, there are thousands of authorized passport acceptance facilities all across the U.S. You can find them in post offices, county courts, public libraries, and local government offices. But a quick heads up, while they really are everywhere, a lot of them strictly require appointments now. So please don't just walk in unannounced expecting to be seen. Always check ahead and book a slot.
Let's move to the main event and see how this all builds together on appointment day, just to strip away any remaining bureaucratic anxiety. When you finally walk up to that counter with your unsigned application, your original docs, your photocopies, and your single loose photo, the agent is going to do exactly 5 things. They'll review your documents, verify your identity against your physical ID, administer that official oath, witness you signing the DS-11, and finally accept your application along with those 2 separate fees. Then they package the whole shebang up and send it off for processing, and that's literally it. Before you walk out those doors, though, make sure you keep your receipt and all your leftover documentation, because step 24 is simply tracking your application online. The Department of State actually has this handy passport status system right on their website, where you can watch your application make its way to the finish line and eventually straight into your mailbox.
And just like that, the big bureaucratic hurdle is cleared. By restructuring the crazy instructions, respecting that golden rule of the unsigned document, and gathering up all your physical evidence, you have officially conquered Form DS-11. So, as you track that application online, the only question left to answer is this. Once that little blue book finally arrives in the mail, where in the world is it going to take you first?